Politics moves faster than ever, and uncertainty is the new normal. Welcome to The Pulse of Politics, the podcast about public affairs and how to navigate an unpredictable world. Each episode brings you real cases, best practices, and a look at how AI is reshaping policy work. Let's get started. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Jacqueline, a very well welcome to the Pulse of Politics podcast. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest today.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
You are the head of public affairs here at Lidl in Switzerland. Before we talk about your daily job and what you actually do day in, day out, I want to go back a bit to your studies. You studied communications and later business administration. What career did you envision when you finished your studies? Was it always your goal to go into public affairs?
I started with an internship before my studies at Public Affairs and Communication Agency, and so I kind of knew where I want to go. During my studies, I've been working in communications, and so I knew it will be the field of communication public affairs. So it was kind of my goal. Or to go there. But in the end, I mean, there are a lot of ways to go into public affairs. So it's never sure where you will end up. But I always had it in mind.
I love that. That's a very clear goal and you went after it. Nevertheless, public affairs is often seen as a pretty male-dominated discipline or field, right? So in practice, how many of the lobbyists are actually women? Do you notice that it's male dominated, or how do you see the actual reality in the field?
I think it really depends on the topic. Mm-hmm. Of course, there are a lot of men, but I think I do see a lot of women as well, and I think there are more and more also coming. Maybe it is still a bit dominated, but it's not that I'm the only one or something special.
So it's improving,
yeah,
at least. And what is the fascination? You said it is actually, it was a career goal for you to have a career in public affairs. But what is so fascinating for you? Why is that the right fit for you for your personal career?
I do have a lot of interests, and I love it that you can kind of shape the future a bit, mm-hmm. at least you think you can. But when it comes to communication, it's super interesting, but in the end, often you just communicate what others did or what others want to do. And in public affairs, you can really be part of it. You can shape it. You can bring together different stakeholders. It's often quite a long process, so it can be a bit annoying from time to time because you have an idea and you know it might take you 4 to 6 years until you get there. But when you're there, it's great. So I think that's the fascination also, that it is so wide. You have so many different topics and you can really go deep into the topics. You have to. I mean, you need some expertise when you go talk to the politicians. And so I really kind of like these two things of bringing together different stakeholders, talk to them and be an active part of them, but also going deep into the material and just like read and do some research and find every point in it that you want to make.
That's amazing. You can have a real impact.
I hope so.
I love that. And talking about impact, I'm sure there's no day that is exactly the same like the other or the previous day, but is there some sort of a typical day in your daily work life?
I don't think so. And that's exactly the point I love about it. Of course, there are things like monitoring you do every day, but it's something I just do I just do it. It's not like that I have my hour of monitoring. It's just like sometimes I do it then, sometimes you talk to someone and hear something. You have a lot of different meetings. Of course, you know when the sessions are, and then you know a bit more. You will be in Bern, you will be there, things like that. But you can't really plan everything. And that's also something I love. You have to be spontaneous. Sometimes people just call you, hey, do you have time for a meeting in an hour? And then you go there and if it's possible. And yeah, or people come just with some ideas. You do a great brainstorming and have new inputs of what you want to do. And other days you're just there by your own, researching, writing things down. So yeah, it's hard.
It really keeps things interesting for you.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
cool. So I know you also deal with a lot of sensitive information, so I don't want to go into that field because obviously you cannot disclose that on a public podcast. But I feel with your experience, with your career in public affairs, people can probably learn a lot from you. So if you look at Lidl here in Switzerland, can you talk a bit more about your public affairs process? How does your process look like? How do you work? How do you set up public affairs at Lidl?
Yeah, of course. I can give you some insights on that. We at Lidl Switzerland, I mean, we are part of the Schwarzgruppe. And so we are also in exchange with them, with Lidl in Germany, Lidl International, Lidl in Austria, Lidl Italy, like all the other Lidls around us, of course. And then we have this, I would call it public affairs board within Lidl. We call it stakeholder engagement, where we discuss topics that are relevant for the European Union. And then in Lidl Switzerland, we also have we call it a public affairs circle. I set that up with the idea of bringing together the knowledge because, of course, I can't know every detail of all the topics at Lidl in Switzerland. No way. And for that, I need the expertise of my colleagues and to make sure that they have the political topics in their mind and I will get the right information. I created this circle and there we have one person from each
business unit?
Yeah, business unit, exactly. And we will just exchange every 2 months. So I will bring them inputs, what's going on in the Swiss politics, what could be relevant topics, and they bring inputs from their side, like, hey, we should go with this position, or hey, did you hear about that? What do others think about the topics? And then we kind of make the first draft of how we should position ourselves. And then with that, of course, we go up to the board and to the CEO. And on the other hand, these people in the circle are also the people I contact when I have an idea, when I need to know something, when I hear about something. So I can discuss the topics with them and they have an ear open within their units to bring up things I might not hear about. And yeah, so far it works quite well.
I like this a lot because it's not a one-way process. It's actually both ways. You go in there every 2 months, you give them an update about what you see is happening on a political level, on a regulatory level, and at the same time they come to you and say, oh, you heard about this, or this is actually moving, we need to have a watch out for this specific topic. This is really cool because it's not just a top-down, here's our strategy, now you go execute. It's a really strong communication across the whole organization.
Yeah, exactly. And also an exchange, because sometimes we have a topic within one unit and then we discuss it in the circle and another unit is like, hey, this might also affect us, or did you think about this or that? And you just have another, open ear, another thinking about it. And I really love the exchange there. They're all people who are interested in politics, who will also have exchange with stakeholders within their fields. They might be also in associations. So that's really cool.
Amazing. And how many people are part of that circle? Is it more like 5 to 10 people, or is that more like 20, 30 people who then join the circle every 2 months?
No, it's more 5 to 10. And of course, it's not always the same people. They also, bring sometimes different people. But I love it because then, with every new member, you have new ideas, new mindsets.
Perfect. And how do you then manage the topic? So there's issues that you already identified that are relevant for Lidl in Switzerland, but I'm sure there are also new topics coming up with these discussions. How do you keep track of all the topics? Do you have like an issue map, a topic map, or how do you work to then also keep track of things that come up and you can then provide an update after 2 months, for example?
Yeah, I you wouldn't be happy to hear it, but I'm still working with a huge Excel.
Well, that's what most companies do.
Where I have all the topics and all my notes, what's going on to the topics, who I've contacted, who is within the organization, in touch with whom, etc. And I also do have like a stakeholder mapping where I can show it, but there's really just like the big topics that you can see where we're working on. I've divided it in like proactive topics. That's the things we set, like an agenda setting from us. And then we have the reactive topics we just have to deal with it, topics that just came up and we can't ignore.
Like a new regulation, for example.
Exactly. And yeah, that's how it's briefly divided. And then within that, I do the whole mappings and also who we want to contact, who we did, who we already know, which associations should also be included, etc.
How many topics do you have on that list that you manage?
Whew, that's a hard one. I would say over 50 at the moment,
Wow.
but they're not all active now. I
Sure.
also divide them into ongoing, into done but might pop up again, and into pressure on.
Makes
So
sense.
I would say like really pressure on, we have maybe 15 to 20.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah, that's also the normal number that is actually
Exactly.
manageable
Yeah,
on a daily
exactly.
basis. And who is then responsible for that? Is it mainly you who is responsible to then keep that Excel list up to date? And it's mainly you who then brings it up again, gets all the information from different stakeholders and then updates it? Or do you also collaborate with your teams in that same Excel list?
Yeah, both. I mean, I do have the main overview and also manage that, but then of course I do have my colleagues helping with it and also working with the Excel and bringing up their news, and I will update it or they will update it, and it's a process. And the Excel really is just an overview, and then we have different channels where we have also like all the documents and stuff, but it will change as we are switching systems. So we'll see how we will do it then, because in my vision, it would be great that everything is in one place and not on different spaces. So I'm really looking forward to the change, and I'm sure we will find a new option for collaboration.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because you have the issues, you have the topics, right? Then you have the stakeholders, and within the stakeholders, you probably have different individuals that you want to deal with. And then you also have the whole monitoring part on the news, on the political side. It's a lot of different systems and pieces that you have to bring together.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's also interesting because, of course, I work really closely with the media team. So they do the whole media monitoring. I'm really happy for that.
Great, yeah.
So I can just take it and then, put it together. But so I'm excited to see how that will work.
When we talk to other companies, they often say, well, we have all these different systems and the system alone in itself is actually pretty good. But to then make use of it, we often have a system change. So the media monitoring is a great example, right? Your media team does that, but then you get the information and then there's usually still some manual work involved where you then have to translate what the media monitoring team found. And you then have to translate that, okay, what does that mean for my stakeholders or for my issues? Do you experience the same?
Yes, totally. And what I want to bring up is also the factor of a human being, I would say. But honestly, a lot of information is just in my head.
Of course, yeah.
Or in the head of others. And it's really hard to bring that down because sometimes you can't really write down everything you've heard about it or things like that, and sometimes it's just you hear something and then it comes up, and so I think that's really hard to bring that down somehow. And so what we do is a lot of exchange also on a meeting base where we just talk to each other and bring up the things and just see that we have a lot of exchange when we've seen someone or something, because it's also you can't really write down everything, you're not really allowed to.
Of course.
So to not have loss of knowledge.
Makes sense. But it is a very complex task to do. And I like your vision of having everything in the same place. That makes a ton of sense. How do you then go from, okay, we have identified the relevant players with the issues, with the stakeholders. We are up to date about what is happening out there in the world with our monitoring. How do you then keep track of the actual interactions? Like if you talk to an association, if you talk to a politician, and also coordinate who is doing what there, is that mainly happening through these meetings, or how do you keep track and also really plan your things from, okay, now we want to engage with the specific stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we can write down who we want to contact, but then in the end, it's a lot about meetings and, yeah, just knowing things,
Yeah.
being part of the company for a few years.
Mhm.
And yeah.
It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
right? Because then you really need to meet with the right stakeholders at the right time.
Yes. And I think it's also sometimes hard because you have a lot of meetings and
Mhm.
it takes so much time then to really track it. And to be honest, that's then the thing that kind of goes behind because the next thing is coming, the next is coming. And in the end,
Yeah.
you think like, okay, I did that and you know it. And so I think it's really good that I have a good exchange with my boss and talk with her and she talks with me. And so she knows who I'm meeting with. And then when she meets this person, she's like, oh, she has already been there. Or we just make
Yeah.
an exchange before. And I tell her, like, oh, yeah, last time we've talked about this and that. And she does the same with me. And so I really like this exchange. And I think it's really, yeah, important.
Of course, yeah. Because otherwise you would look like a fool, right? If your boss talks to one person, then you approach the same person. Like,
Exactly.
hey, don't you talk to each other?
So we really like of split the topics so
Yeah.
that we really know like who is responsible for which topic just to avoid things like that, but you
Yeah.
can't never really avoid it. But she really knows like, oh, it's this topic, you must have been talking to Jacqueline and I know
Nice.
the same. And so far it works really good.
And I think you're a smaller team in that
Mhm.
sense, right? It's you and your boss basically. You're very close.
Mhm.
How do bigger companies do that? Because if you have a team of 20 people in public affairs, how do you coordinate that? Because you cannot keep talking to everyone of the team all day long, basically.
I have no idea. I
Yeah.
just can imagine maybe they just really, really split the topics and
Yeah.
you just only do your topic and maybe like that, but
Yeah.
I have no idea. Sorry.
So the clear responsibility is
Mhm.
is a core thing to avoid any bad
Yeah,
outcome.
I guess so. Yeah. And also the clear values and also things like internal documents where you maybe just write down which topics you're about. And then when other people from the company you might not even think about, they might meet someone because you never know. Switzerland is like very small
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
it's the same bubble you meet. And that's also really cool. But so when you have a document like that, that's something I did just like really briefly, like which topics we're about, not with whom we met,
Yeah.
but just the topics so people know, okay, it could be that someone else already talked to someone about the topic. And we also have numbers and stuff and
Mhm.
everyone talks about the same.
Yeah.
So that's also written down. So yeah.
That makes sense. And when you then say, okay, we want to engage with a stakeholder, there are so many different ways to do that, right? You can meet the person, you can have an email exchange, you can have maybe you place some messages through a specific medium like a newspaper. What are sort of the best way to engage different stakeholders for you?
Hey, it really depends on the topic. On a general base, I would say I prefer a personal contact,
Yeah.
either phone or meetings, because you can just feel kind of the other person, you can talk about it. So that's what I prefer. Of course, it's not always possible, it's a lot of time.
Of course.
But especially for the first meeting, I usually love to see people in person when it's possible somehow, and then you can see how you go on.
Yeah. Do you then also have to travel to Bern quite often to meet people there, like when
Yes.
all the politicians are meeting, for example?
Yes, I'm there. I do my best to be present and meeting people there. And the longer you're there, the more you get invited. And so, yeah.
It's really a long-term game. People need to get to know you. You need to build your network, trust also, I imagine.
Exactly. So
Uh,
it takes a lot of time, but it's also lots of fun.
I imagine. Yeah. And And another challenge that I often hear about is, okay, public affairs, it's a lot of effort. We hear from you, you put into internal alignment, you put into meeting people, etc. But at the same time, at one point, the CEO of Lidl Switzerland is probably also coming and saying, okay, show me, what have you been working on? How do you sort of build this track record where you can say, hey, this is how we can measure our impact or our work to also show why we are an important part of Little Switzerland and why it's worth having this investment in our team?
I think this is also something about trust, and we are really lucky that our CEO trusts us with our work. And of course, we give him updates. What I do is I just talk to him and tell him like whom I've been meeting, what they've been telling, what I think where we should have to go, or what others are doing, where we have been, what they were saying about us, etc. And then of course I show him like where we're going. When it comes to votes, then he sees like, okay, they voted into the direction we kind of wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, things like that. And also, for example, sometimes, yeah, you can read something in the media and then you can also see like, hey, that's something. And of course, I just give them track record on what I'm doing and what's the goal of it. And yeah, but in the end, it's really, really hard to just measure it and give it a number. But I think you have to know that it is hard within public affairs, and when someone knows that, then you find different ways to show it.
Because it also takes time, right? Especially if you are like in a legislation process, this is usually multiple years until you then see whether you succeeded or not.
Exactly.
Are there any KPIs along the way where you say a certain amount of statements in the newspaper or the amount of meetings that you took, how you can make it a bit more quantifiable? Or it's really complex and really difficult, but I
Yeah,
have
it
no
is.
clue.
I mean, of course, in the end, it's either you succeed or not within the next 4 to 6 years, and then you really see how it went. But within between, I think it's really like showing what you do, what are the steps, and also that people know how it works in Swiss politics. I think when people understand the process and how complex it is, how many things can be, could be, who else is also doing something, then it makes it easier and then it makes it understandable. And yeah, I can also just come back to the trust thing. And yeah, it's still something, yeah, I think it's really hard to make it measurable because yeah, other yeah, things are easier. You can just see, okay, you solved something or not.
Right.
But yeah, I'm happy that I don't have to report numbers, so that I can just report like what I'm doing and what's the aim of it and what it brings.
Yeah. So it's more about transparency and alignment with the right people internally to build that trust and nurture that trust instead of very strict KPI reportings.
And also alignment with the other KPIs. So when I can say like, look, we have this KPI in this business unit and I support them with this and this work.
Right. Yeah.
So that's more how like I try to do it, just to show them like, hey, look, we can do this and that's amazing. And when we do this, it's getting even better. Or sometimes there is no way without doing it this or like this or that to achieve their goal.
Exactly. You mentioned Excel that you use along the process. Obviously, I think many companies do it that way. Do you use any additional tools that help you with your daily work?
I do have political monitoring tool I use just to make it easier that I don't have to read all the newsletters by
That's
my
a lot
own.
of information.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of information, a lot of work, a lot of time.
Yeah.
Of course, PowerPoint is a close friend of mine to show things. Yeah, email.
Of course.
It's a tool, but I don't really use like another big tool that is not known yet, I guess. Yeah.
And now there's AI coming into the game, right? We learned there's a lot of still manual work and also a lot of internal alignment, etc. How do you see AI changing public affairs work?
Yeah, I think AI is great for things like monitoring, also research, like for the first research, because they can make things easier. You can, get some time when they're doing things for you. But in the end, I think public affairs is something, it comes down to, it's a people business, and you can't really not be there or not talk to someone. And so I come back what I've said before. I love talking to people in person. AI can't do that. In the end, you have your gut. You have to trust your gut. And I think AI can never really do that, but they can support you with everything that's going on behind scenes and support you there. Also, maybe with languages. I mean, in the end, it's great what they can do. I've just tried some goggles a few weeks before, and their translation was amazing. I've talked to someone, he talked in Italian. I can't speak any Italian, and we could have a great conversation just with the goggle translating what the other person was saying. It was
That's so cool.
Scary and cool at the same time. So I think when it comes to things like that, they can support it. Yeah, and with the whole I've said that before, the whole monitoring, etc.
Yeah, so it's more AI is supporter. It's like a co-pilot. It helps you to make sense of big data sources. It helps you to put the relevant things in front of you, for example, for the monitoring, but it's never going to replace your judgment, because your judgment is built with so much experience, and only with publicly available information alone, you cannot replace that judgment. And that's also, it should not be the goal. It should be a leverage to speed up you and your processes, but not to replace you.
Exactly. It's more like a sparring partner. I see it like a sparring partner. I can ask AI, hey, do you come up with another stakeholder? I didn't think about it. Or, hey, AI, what do you think about this topic? Who else is involved? Sometimes they find things, but when it comes to them, I mean, it depends on how AI is trained. But you still need your brain to then see like, okay, it could be like that, or nah, I don't have the same impression, especially when it comes to analysis. And I think that's the interesting part about it. You can challenge AI and AI challenges you, because maybe they are like, no, you're wrong. I mean, they would never say to you, you're wrong, but you kind of think about it like, hey, why didn't I come up with this idea? Or why did I not think about this or that stakeholder? And then, it's on you to make something out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And in that sense, do you feel it's important that public affairs professionals actually use and play around with AI? Because I imagine that those who will use it or are already using it, the gap between those who do use it and those who don't will get bigger and bigger. Because if you have good judgment and you use AI, you can get so much more done than someone who doesn't.
I do think so. Yeah, I think you should use it. But you should also be careful. I mean, we do have a lot of sensitive data, and I would never put that into AI.
Right.
Never. Or not at the moment for sure, but I think never. And so I think there you have to be careful. But when you use it, like you're allowed to use it, I think it's amazing, and you should use it, because it, can make some work for you, and you can use your time for things AI can't, and you're faster and make more impact.
Yeah, like
when we come back to the KPIs,
exactly,
you can do more at the same time.
So instead of manually compiling media monitorings, you can meet more people in person to bring your topics forward, for example.
Exactly.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
And if you look a bit into the future, I know you are not allowed to disclose any sensitive information, obviously, but where do you sort of see the next big priorities when it comes to public affairs for Lidl in Switzerland?
I think I can't say something about that at the moment. I'm sorry, because otherwise the competitors might have the same topics.
Fair, yeah. But you will be busy.
I'm super busy.
Okay.
That's what I can say. I will not be,
You'll not run out of work.
I will not run out of work, and you will see me around.
Perfect. So maybe we finish the episode then with some rapid fire questions. I just give you different options to choose from, or a short question. You have to answer it in one sentence, ideally.
I try my best.
What do you think is better for your daily work, digital dashboards or classic PowerPoint updates?
I would love to say digital dashboards, but it's still PowerPoint, and I still kind of love-hate PowerPoint.
It's the classic love-hate relationship. What is the best career advice that you have ever received?
That you should never stop doing something besides work. You should always have a hobby, do it, and have your mind free, kind of, just for a few hours a week.
What is your hobby in that sense?
Scuba diving.
Wow, nice. And what is one policy issue that deserves more attention? Doesn't have to be related to Lidl. We can take that out of the equation.
I think it's childcare, daycares, just like the whole issue about it, and bringing back mothers to work, bringing back fathers to work, and have a good base there.
You have some first-hand experience right there.
Yeah.
What's the most common misconception that people have about public affairs that they just get wrong or don't understand fully?
That we're just drinking champagne all day long.
How often does that actually happen?
Well, I mean, it happens, but not that often.
No.
Yeah.
And if you could go back to your career choice, let's assume you just finished your studies, would you choose a career in public affairs again?
Yeah, I think so. Really love my job. Yeah, I think I would do the same. And if not, I might try to become an ocean biologist and so combine scuba diving with work.
Amazing. You're in the perfect spot then. That's fantastic. Jacqueline, it was a pleasure having you and to learn from you. Thank you so much for sharing your processes and your perspective on things. And I wish you all the best and lots of success.
Thank you so much for having me, and also all the best.
You've been listening to The Pulse of Politics, a Delos podcast about navigating uncertainty in public affairs. For more insights, visit delosanalytica.com.